Thank you for tuning in to the Afternoon Pint. This episode is sponsored by Camilla Najat of Exit Realty, Strategy Up Business Consultants, and ISS Atlantic Security Guard Services. Enjoy the show.
Cheers!
Cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome to the Afternoon Pint. I'm Mike Tobin.
I am Matt Conrad.
And who do we have with us today?
I'm Marcy Warhaft,
Marcy.
author of The Good Stripper. Yep.
All right, author of The Good Stripper. So that's a whole other thing we'll unpack in a minute here. What we like to do generally when we first start, we talk about a little bit what we're drinking. So Mike, we're still technically in January while we're recording this. So
That's right.
You're still drinking non-alcoholic beers.
Sober Carpenter. This
Yep.
is a white, non-alcohol craft beer.
And I got Great Roads. Anyone who listens to us knows that we go to Great Roads often. This is my favorite beer that they do. It's their Red IPA. So it's great beer. So yeah. So what do you got there, Marcy?
I have got some vodka. Vodka straight up. It's the only thing I drink. If I drink, it's vodka.
It is
And,
just straight vodka. That's gangster.
it's
I love
just-
that.
Is
Yeah, that
it?
is
It's pretty.
good,
It's
yeah.
pretty badass considering
Yeah.
I didn't drink for a million years and then started. And yeah, I just like it. It's clean, straight. So
Yeah.
So what's your favorite vodka then?
you know what? I really should have one, but I'm so not picky. This happens to be Grey Goose only because I was visiting my son and he had it. He doesn't drink it, so he said you can have it. But honestly, I'm so not fancy. So
Okay.
it's yeah.
Yeah, that's that. Vodka is probably on one of my least favorite things to drink, but
Really?
occasionally there's some good ones out there, and you can get some pretty good ones that are out there. But I had a vodka that was from New Brunswick that was oaked, and it had a little yellowish hue to it, but it was probably my favorite vodka I ever had.
Really?
Yeah.
I like it because there's no well, I don't drink a lot of it, but there's, not no hangover. Wine, I love the idea of wine, but it gives me a headache, it makes me sleepy, and anything else I don't like sweet drinks, so, it's pretty.
Nice.
Just straight up Russian style.
Exactly. One of my grandfathers was Russian, so maybe it's in there somewhere. Maybe it's in my DNA.
There you go. So that's it. So okay, so you alluded to it right away. I mean, we talked a little bit before when we were getting set up and everything. So you reached out to us because of a previous guest of ours, Julie.
Yeah.
And you had a couple of different things. I mean, we have a bunch of things that I want to talk about. Obviously the Good Stripper, the fact that you actually were with Defy magazine at one point, and then also you had your own podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And let's do a couple of clips. There's a couple of interesting things there that I'd also like to talk about too. So yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. Cool. Fun.
So thanks to Julie, because that's kind of how you discovered who we are, and that's how we discovered who you are, and really appreciate you reaching out, because I mean, anytime someone reaches out to us and says, "Hey, I'd like to be on your podcast. I am the Good Stripper. I have lots of crazy stories to tell." I mean, yeah.
How do you say no to that?
How do we say no to that?
That's a good lead-in. That's a really good lead-in.
So I guess I don't know. I guess we could start off with the Good Stripper. So I like the little subtitle too: "A soccer mom's memoirs to lies, loss, and lap dances."
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Cole's notes of the book.
Well, I'll tell you this. It's actually the title is a bit deceiving in that when you look at it, you think, oh, it's going to be a stripper story, but it's not. And did I ever dance? Yes. But honestly, maybe for a few months over 20 years ago. It was not a big part of my story. It's a significant part of my story because it's like, how did I get there? It's not the typical story. And it was, like I said, it didn't go on for that long, but the dancing was part of a double life that I led for a few years. So that's the bigger story. It's a smaller part of a much bigger story.
Cool.
And I mean, in a nutshell, which is it's so hard, but without giving too much away, it's basically, I wrote it because two reasons. One, I was somebody who started off in life thinking I could do anything. And I had this really supportive, encouraging family, and everything was great. And I felt loved and safe. And I was this little, like, I was very outspoken, but I would also dance and sing and that kind of kid, you know? And then life was like, wait, hold on, like, not so fast. You think everything's great, but hold on a second, sister. And it started kind of sucker punching me, and I had some major things happen, and I kind of lost my self-worth and my self-esteem. And I went from being a kid who thought I could do anything to thinking I deserved nothing and I was worth nothing. And that set me up for some stuff in life.
Why do you think those feelings happened when you were so young that you stopped believing in yourself at such a young age?
I think there were so many things. I mean, that's the thing with the book. It's like I'll just tell you this. I was seeing a therapist many, many years ago before I wrote the book. And she said, you know, your life would be a great story, but nobody would believe that everything happened to one person. So that there's so many things. But I mean, I think the major thing that turned my life upside down was when I was 17. And my parents were divorced and my father was out of the picture. And I was very, very close with my big brother, who was 5 years older. So I was 17, he was 21, and he got sick and he died. And I didn't see it coming. I was writing my English exam. I got pulled out of class and was told he died. Oh, and God. I always say that the minute before I heard that Billy died was the last minute I felt safe in the world. So at that age, when you're supposed to feel invincible, right? As a teenager, you think nothing bad's going to happen. I was like, everything bad can happen. Like if this could happen. So I felt very unsafe. I felt I had no control. So I had to figure out how I'm going to control my life. And I also felt he was so great. Like he was such a great person. And I'm like, I'm not like that. Like the world needs him more than me. So I felt it should have been me. And even though I had a fantastic mother who was like, oh my God, no, what would I do without you? I still felt like it should have been me. And so I sort of went through from then on thinking like, okay, I'm not good enough. So I have to sort of prove that I'm good enough, but I didn't fit, and trying to be the best, but never thinking I could. So it just, and that kind of snowballed, and I wasn't prepared for how life would throw things at me. I wasn't prepared for some people that manipulated me and kind of betrayed me. And
are you talking like friends or family, or?
I'm talking about, I got married and you know, that ended up, I was married for a long time, and we had a great marriage for part of it. And then things took a turn, a surprising turn.
And you got married pretty young age?
I was 24, which was, for me, it was, yeah, I think it's young. You know, I was still I don't know, didn't know who I was. And,
right. Yeah.
Everything seemed like maybe if I got married, my life will be normal, you know, because I've been through, I mean, there's so much crazy stuff until I was 24, like wild stuff. But it just didn't. And things just took a turn, and it set me into experiences and places that I didn't expect. And it took me out of myself for a while. And the dancing became part of it. And I was married with kids. I didn't need to do it. Whenever somebody,
so the double life kind of spirit from the marriage not really working or whatever, and
it got weird, and I had been through, been through so much trauma. Like we're talking, there was crime in my story, there was death, there was a near-death experience for me, like so much craziness that I hit a point where I'm like, I can't, like I always say a therapist, I think that she may have made this up, but said to me, she called it a traumatic overload. And it's when there's just so much, and I haven't had a chance to catch my breath. It was usually one thing after another, that your body just goes, you're done. You can't anymore. So then when the next thing came, I was just like, all right, that's it. Like, I'm just gonna. So when people don't know my story and they see the stripper part, they'll often say sort of that cliched, well, you know, you were doing what you had to do to put food on the table. I'm like, no, I was married. He had a good job. There was food on the table. The reason I did it was so crazy. So the reason I wrote the book was after I ended up getting out of this crazy life. And I thought, okay, I'm on kind of the straight and narrow, but I had so much guilt and shame over stuff that I had done that I carried with me. And that brought back that feeling of that low self-esteem where I thought, okay, I did bad things in my head, huge bad things, that I don't deserve to be happy. I don't deserve to be healthy. I don't deserve to be loved. I was trying to do that for my my marriage and with my kids, but like for me, I didn't believe it. And that is a terrible way to live. And then I got divorced and I was turning 50. And you know how you have the terrible twos that kids go through? Can I swear?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I think I went through, or still going through, like my 0 fucks left 50s. And I was like, I was turning 50 and I was like, I'm done hiding. I'm done. I was carrying these secrets around with me. What if people find out the stuff that I did? Nobody knew I danced. Nobody knew other stuff. And what if my kids find out? They were like teenagers at the time. I'm like, it was a horrible way to live. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done hiding. And I had a couple of friends who knew parts of my life, not all of it, but they said, you should write a book because you've been through so much and you've survived so much, you could be inspiring. And I was like, no, because to me, I was seeing my failures. They were seeing my successes. I was seeing how many times I fell down. They were seeing how many times I picked myself up. I wasn't there yet,
Yeah.
And it was when those things kind of came together that I went, you know what? Like, I am just going to put it out there. And whatever happens, happens. If people are mad at me, because I thought everyone's going to be mad at me. People are going to lose respect for me. But I really was at a point where I'm like, okay, there's more years behind me than ahead of me. And I also learned that I had survived some really tough stuff. And I thought that's the hard part, right? Like getting through what I got through was the hard part. If someone judges me for how I survived, I can handle that. Like that's on them. So I had to get to a point, and so with my story, it's not like it was good, then it was bad, then it was good. It was good, then it was bad, then it was good, then it was bad, then it was better, then it was bad, then it was bad. And that's like, and I'll just say this, I feel like I'm rambling, but even though the details of my story are unique, like there's some interesting stuff in there, what I'm finding is that the people who read it will come to me or message me and say that they can relate to so much more of it than they expected to, because the themes are universal, right? Everyone's been through loss or bad relationships or issues with their kids or issues with their parents or health stuff, or like that's universal. So even though the details are different, the themes are the same. And so I'm so glad I wrote it.
This episode is brought to you by Camilla Najat with Exit Realty Metro.
Camilla Najat is an experienced real estate agent who prides herself in finding the perfect home for her clients. Camilla can help you with a comparative market analysis to help determine the value of your home if you're planning on selling, or help you determine the going rate for the neighborhood you're moving into. She can also work with you at your pace.
You can reach Camilla by calling 902-880-8429 or email camilla@exitmetro.ca.
Also, you can find her on Facebook at Camilla Najat, Exit Realty Metro.
Yeah.
Cool.
Wow. It's probably really relieving to kind of also just get it off your chest and then to be like, well, it's out now, and, a weight off of your shoulders, a sense, right?
It is. It's funny though, because writing it is one thing. Then when I heard it was going to be published, like that's super exciting. But then you realize, like, when people will say to me, it just happened at my gym the other day where a girl was like, I ordered your book. And I'm always like, you're going to learn a lot about me. So it's like the idea that, oh God, wait, people are going to read it. And I don't hold back. Like I'm like, if I was going to write it, I was going to write it. So you do get to know me really well. So that's a very weird feeling to know, like, oh God, people are, so I'm always kind of like, okay. But it is unbelievably liberating, because I do kind of feel like I really can say anything and do anything now, because I kind of shared everything pretty much. I mean, there's more now, but it's very freeing. It really is. It's not for everyone, but and I get a lot of messages from people saying, how could you be so honest? And I'm like, try it. Like, you think the world's going to collapse. It doesn't. It really doesn't.
That's awesome. So what year the book about?
2021.
2021. Yeah. So it's been a few years. Yeah. And you have an audiobook now too with it?
Yeah.
And do you read the audiobook yourself?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Oh, good.
That's great. Yeah. That'd be a fun listen. Yeah. So, cool. So I guess now where does it stand today? Are you going around, you're doing public speaking, or how are you staying engaged and kind of?
Yeah. Well, there's some things in the works. I can't talk about just yet
Okay.
with the book. But yeah, I do a lot of book clubs, which is really fun and things like that. And I also, from this, I mean, I do a few things. I'm also a fitness instructor and personal trainer, and I do that. But with this, I've had a lot of people come to me and ask, like I said, how are you so honest? Or how did you get rid of the shame? So I do some resiliency training where I help people get through some of the shame. And then I also help people who are putting together books with editing and that. So it just kind of takes me, I do different things. Like it's opened up so many different venues.
So to stay on the shame part, like I mean, for some reason, I don't know, I don't love that word shame just because it's like, I don't know. I mean, I haven't lived your life, so I can't say that's something you should be ashamed of. But more of a sense of personal embarrassment or personal whatever, right? Like that worry about your kids, fine, that I get, right? And I mean, how do you get people to cope with this? Like, we are all at that point now. I mean, I'm over 40, and there's things that I wanted to do that I never did, right? Like, maybe just artistic endeavors or whatever, where I'm afraid that if I go and do that, like if I go put out a song that's a little, aggressive or whatever, that it might ruin my career, or something like that, right? Let's just say, right?
Yeah.
And so I worry about that stuff all the time. And every creative, even this podcast, was probably crippled for years before it actually came out because I was so afraid just to make something, right? Like I was like, what if I look like
Yeah.
a complete dumbass and everybody thinks I've just lost my mind and you know what I mean? And everybody shuns me out.
Yeah.
I was super worried about that. So I get it from that perspective but yeah, I don't know like, how do you help
Well,
people through that?
I'll tell you, there's so many things, but I'll tell you this. One thing I realized, first of all, somebody is going to think you're an idiot. It doesn't matter what you do. There's always going to be somebody, and there's always going to be somebody. But who cares? What I realized was, because I did have people sometimes, like I curse sometimes, or I whatever. I'm very out there, and I'm very on people like, oh, don't you think maybe you're missing out on some opportunities, or maybe, you're turning some people off. And my thing is, it would be so much worse if I lost out on an opportunity that could have been for me because I didn't show them who I was, than missing out on something because I am who I am. You know what I mean? Then it's not right for me anyway. If I'm being as Marcy as I can be, and somebody goes, oh, she's not for us, I'm not for them, because they would figure that out anyway. But imagine if I was holding back something that I loved, and that's exactly what they're looking for. That's such a shame, So it's that whole kind of cliche, which I hate cliches, but the thing is, your vibe attracts your tribe. It's like the more you are, then you're going to get the people who get you. And why would
That's
you
just a
want,
wicked way to say it. Your vibe attracts
right?
your tribe.
I like
Yeah.
it. I
I
like
like
it.
that,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
I
Cheers
mean,
to that slogan. That's going to be a new 2025er. I like that.
hey,
Cheers to that.
there you go. But I
Yeah.
honestly stopped. There are a million quotes that we'll see on social media saying, just be you, right? I mean, you hear it. And then, but the follow up is really, but not like that, or as long as
Yeah.
you are like me. And
Yeah.
there's so much of that. But you know what? I don't know what it is. I really just kind of flipped this. Something happened with me where it was just like, I truly am not bothered. Like, really, it took me this long, though. It took from somebody who cared what everybody thought, to really not worrying about what other people think, because they're not worrying about what I think.
Yeah.
Nobody's waking up in the morning going, oh God, what should I wear? What would Marcy like? Or should I do that? So why am I giving them that kind of energy? I don't anymore. So I think it's that fear. Also, the fear that I noticed, what I thought, okay, so I thought I didn't share my story because I was afraid of what would happen. But what the reality is, I was the one that was holding myself back. It was me. It wasn't anybody else, right? I was the one judging myself. So what actually happened is, when I did release the book, I remember doing my first book club, and I thought, oh, these women are going to be mad at me with certain things. They were totally into another part. It's like the things that we think are so huge to somebody else, not such a big deal, but they might see something else and go, oh, I don't get that. So I was projecting. I was all that shame. I didn't have to carry it because nobody else was looking at me like that. And so I was able to let that go, which is huge. So that's the thing. It's to realize also the power of sharing it. What's amazing is there's so many things that we do and we think we're the only one, or things that we've done and we think, oh, this is so terrible. Then you hear somebody else say, no, I did that. And you're like, oh, she's not a terrible person. And you did that. So you realize, oh, we're human. And there's so much power in that, but you don't know if you're holding that in. You think you're the only one.
And kind of bully ourselves, right? And like sometimes we're our own biggest bully.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time. Yeah, for sure. We wouldn't talk to other people the way we talk to ourselves. And it's amazing how just because I'm so open, I had so many strangers who will send me like their deepest, darkest secrets, knowing, and it's true, I won't tell anybody. And they know that I won't judge them, but it's amazing. And it's also, they'll say to me, I can't share this yet. Like I can't.
Right.
But they tell me, like a confession, I guess.
Okay. Was there ever a message that you got where you were just like, whoa?
There were a couple.
Okay.
Yeah. There were a couple. From a guy I can think of and a woman I can think of. Yeah, where I was like, all right.
I have to call the police now, man.
I know, nothing like that.
No, not like that. Okay.
But yeah, and then you realize I never would have guessed, and that's the thing. Everyone else seems so together. And then you realize, no, nobody's together.
Well, it was weird. I was talking to Matt the other day about, like, I don't know, our show and our media, kind of the direction we're going to be going this year with some other projects we're working on. And it's like, I was telling him a book I read that was when I was really young. It was about, called Stick to Your, and the motto of the book was Maestro Fresh West, Maestro Fresh West.
Of course.
Right?
So let your backbone slide.
He wrote a book called Stick to Your Vision based on a song he had called Stick to Your Vision in like 97 or 99, right? Okay. So I read the book because I was like a kid at the time, or a kid. I was like 20, right, when it came out. And I like the book really resonated. I loved his book. I really did. And we'll get him on the show here soon enough and get to tell him that first. I can't wait until we do that. But one of the things he had that I had the hardest time finding was he said, first you need to identify your vision. And you're like, whoa, that first step is the hardest, right? Like, I mean, so like for you obviously through all these trials and tribulations, at some point, something resonated where you had like a vision, an ulterior motive with all the experience that you had in life to kind of build something out of it, right? Do you know how you realized that? Like, do you know how you came to that kind of conclusion from everything you went through?
I think I'm still figuring that out. I think, I always say I change every 6 months. I'm something new and figuring out something new, and I evolve. But I mean, the first thing, like we talked about at the beginning, with when I worked with Julie and I was the body image expert at her magazine, is that was one thing that kind of helped me get out of some bad stuff. Was that one of the things that happened when my brother died was that I developed an eating disorder, because it was this thing of two things. It was that, okay, if I can't be smart enough and interesting enough, I'll try to be pretty enough. And at that point, 80s, not that it's different now, but it's skinny enough. And also it was control. At that age, when nothing is in your control, what's the one thing you can control is your body, right? I can control what I'm eating, when I'm not eating that. So, and I had a doctor I talk about in my book who really messed me up with that and told me I needed to lose weight to fit into society, even though I was at a very healthy weight. I was teaching dance, but he was just not a good person. And so that really set me off. And so I carried that with me for most of my life, the eating disorder, which is terrible. And then when I went into recovery for it, my kids were little at the time. I had 2 little boys, and I didn't like what they were being taught at school about health. It was all about losing weight instead of gaining health. And there were kids who were hiding food, and it was just terrible. And I didn't like what was going on. And so I went to their school and I said, I don't like the message that you're giving. I'd like to give another message. And I had nothing prepared. And they're like, okay, come in on Friday and talk. And I was like, huh? So I put together like a bristle board with some pictures, and I talked about media manipulation and Photoshop and all this stuff. And you know what? It resonated with the kids, and then it became a thing. And so I started this program called Fit versus Fiction. And I would go to schools, and I started with 4th grade. And then the schools asked me to speak to youngest 1st grade. And then I was the go-to whenever there was something in the news. I think this was before Facebook and before social media. So
yeah, I saw on your LinkedIn that you've been doing this for about 14 years.
I started that. I think I started that in 2000 and I don't even know, 6 maybe. So it was a long, and it wasn't something I planned. It was literally, I felt I was a mom, and I was somebody who had dealt with it, and I didn't like to see other mothers, like I saw my mother watch me go through that and feel so, like I always say, the worst thing is seeing your kids in pain, whether it's emotional or physical, and you can't do anything about it. And then to help kids so they could avoid what I went through. And it was interactive and fun, and nobody was talking about it. It's not glamorous to talk about an eating disorder and body image issues. It's not, but I was like, I'll talk about it. And I was also, I'd see something on a show that I didn't like, and I'd call them, or I hear something on the radio, and I'd email them, and they're like, come on the show. So I was the go-to whenever there's something in the news about weight, especially kids and things like that. And so that kind of became a real big purpose for me. And that was real. But you know what though? I still, because at this point I was still hiding secrets. So there was still this part of me that was like, what if I'm on TV and somebody sees something and then they tell everyone that oh no, she's not such a good person because and I crashed after that. I had written a book for parents. I mean, like I said, it was in the media a ton. And I still was like, no, I'm a bad person. And I had to crash again and then pick myself up and leave my marriage and kind of realize, no, I deserve to be healthy and happy. And this is where things are going to change. And it only started changing for me like in 2016, 17.
Crazy.
Okay, wow.
So, I mean, with today, I'm raising a teenager right now. So, like, what's some of the advice that you give to young women that are kind of suffering today from these, not wanting to eat?
It's tough because people will always ask me, is it better now? Is it worse now? Or it must be better now. And I'm like, well, not really. I mean, no. But it's you know what though? It's different. It's so different because, I was asked to write a body image section of a book for women. There's a book being written for women over 40, their health. And I'm writing the body image part. And, I was thinking back when I was growing up, we didn't have social media, right? And then you had a few channels on TV, and I had my my sister, she's 7 years older, her Cosmopolitan magazine, and there would always be the models, and you flip open the first page and it would tell you the models, like the cover models, measurements and all that. And I'd look at that. And but we didn't have, that's what we had. Like we didn't have a ton of stuff. However, we had diet ads, right? We had a lot of things that we don't have now. We had that then. But we also didn't have the plus of now is that then all we had were those images that we saw. There was still the photoshopping. There was still, again, the ads for, can you pinch an inch, or, these diet supplements and things like that. We didn't have any of the body positivity or any good stuff. So that's one thing. Whereas now there's so much, some would say too much, there's so much. So now what's tough and what's good is, the problem is too much information, right? So you've got all this information coming at kids constantly. And we all know, it's like, somebody takes a picture and they're like, I just woke up. And you're like, 817 pictures later. That's how they will. And the filters but it's so hard that it comes at you. But there's also the good stuff. There's also a lot of people showing, that they encouraging the more natural, encouraging healthy. There's some pushback when there's the unhealthy images are pushed. So it's kind of training our kids to look for the good stuff. It's almost like, I'm just thinking now, probably a terrible analogy, but if you get a headache and you you Google it, to see what it is, you can look and see, oh my God, I have a brain tumor. Or you can look up what are benign issues, like really nothing, not important issues or not serious issues for headache. And it could say you could dehydrated or you didn't get enough sleep. It's your choice, how you want to do that. Right. So it's staying away from social media pages that make you feel like crap. That's our choice. And also, one thing I would tell you as a parent, one thing that really helps, and this helps young, is get your kids involved in stuff that they like. Like get your kids involved in activities. It could be something that you like, but you could be a sports guy and your kid likes art, get them in art classes, anything that they like to do that has nothing to do with how they look. There's nothing to do with popularity. It's something that they do that makes them feel good, that is showing them it's not about how they look, it's about a talent, it's about an interest, because that is something that really helps build their self-esteem. But also, if it's like a group thing, you're involving them with people who are like-minded. Because sometimes kids at school, sometimes kids are mean, and sometimes teachers aren't great, so if you can get them, my kids were into sports, so if you get them into something where they have a group of kids that are different from the ones they see every day, plus maybe a coach or something that is really helpful to them, and could be a mentor, then that's just another place where they if certain parts of their life aren't good for their self-esteem, well, here's something else. And I think cultivating that is a great way to combat the negativity that they're getting.
Great answer. Thank you.
Yeah, people like that Dr. Google. That's the thing.
It's so bad.
Oh, I know.
It's but you know,
all the time.
I wonder. I often wonder about that. About like, you know, how different things are. You know, and if they're better or worse. And I don't know if you can answer it. Like, I don't know if anyone can answer it, because, you know, I think of like when you think of like, you know, 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s, and going all the way back. Particularly, it could be very bad for women in terms of, you know, you weren't like, at some point you weren't allowed to talk back, kind of thing, right? You weren't you were, there was articles in magazines that were basically saying like, stay thin for your guy, and like, you know,
100%. Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't like, it wasn't Cosmo like, stay thin for your guy. It was like an instruction manual on how you should be a wife, kind of thing, right? There was those types of things, and then there was nothing else out there to think any differently, right?
Exactly.
It was like, this is it. Like, if you're not this, then you're not a good wife, right?
Right.
And so there was a lot of that. Now we have more body positivity stuff today, but we're able to reach, like, we see this in social media in all aspects. There's lots of good out there, but there's lots of bad out there.
Well,
and the bad can get together real easy on social media. And it's not like, you know, at one point it's like any bully. At one point, years ago, before social media, you could at least hide in your home. And now you can't, right?
Right. Yeah. And for sure. And I think that that's another thing, sort of as parents, to do. I know I used to do with my kids. And again, they were boys. I wouldn't sit down and have a conversation. Like, that's the difference between girls and boys. You're not going to, okay, we're going to talk about something serious now. They're like, no, we're not. So just so just kind of what I would do with them when we were watching TV or something, and or if we were out, somebody would say something, or we'd see a commercial idea, and I would just not lecture, but say, oh my God, that's ridiculous. Like, that doesn't even make sense. And it's making sure that, because the negative voices are going to come in. So our voices have to be louder. And so I remember once I was in a store with my kids. I don't remember how old they were. Maybe they were like 10, 11, 12. And there was a maggot. No, it was one of those, we're Canadian, those Kinder eggs, you know, those Kinder surprise eggs.
Yeah.
And there was like a Barbie one and like a Hot Wheels one. And I remember one of my sons coming over to me and he's like, well, this is so stupid. Like, I don't understand. So I'm a boy, and if I have this one, and then he stopped himself and he went, ugh, I hate that I can't not see that. And I'm like, I love that you can't not see that. You know, it was just ingrained that it's just silliness. But yeah, it's like he said, there's so much good and there's so much bad. And the problem also, kind of like, for some reason, the bad stuff sticks with us. Like,
100% always does.
You can have 10 people, you walk down the street and people go, hey, you look great today. And you're like, thanks. And then one person says, oh, you look tired, or did you gain weight? That's the one that's the one that's going to stick with you. Right. And I don't know why we do that. And that's why that's like social media, right? You can see a whole bunch of positive stuff, one negative thing, and that sticks with you. But that's when we have to go, okay, but is that logical? Is that realistic? You know, and we have to step away from it. But it's just, honestly, it's like an exercise, but it's like for your brain. You have to just remind yourself constantly, this isn't real. You know, like, it's just, you can't give somebody that control over you.
Well, bad news always does travel faster. We know that. Like, you know, bad news, you know, you have to fight 10 times harder to get good news out to the level that bad news gets out. And I mean, I think that feeds to a deeper, you know, a much deeper question of how humanity as a society is. You know, on an individual level, like, there's people react differently, but I mean, you know, I think I don't know, but I'm a pretty happy person, and I hope that most people are pretty happy people. But I think as a society, we can, especially when we are as a collective, we cannot be happy people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember where I saw it, but it was some sort of a quote that basically was like, it's just like hurt. That saying, like, hurt people hurt people.
Hurt people, yeah.
So it's the same thing. Like, people want to tear people down because they feel like it kind of brings people to their level, almost like how you felt, right? It brings people down. It's like, I'm going to tear them down. Like, I'm feeling bad about me. I'm going to bring them down, and we're gonna then I'll feel better about myself, because it's like, I know that I'm here, they're also here, so it's okay. But I always say, and Tobin's probably heard me say this before, there's two ways that you can build the tallest building in a city. You can tear all the other buildings down and leave yours left, or you can just build a taller building.
Right. Well, yeah, that's sorry. No, that's good. It's funny because I posted something recently. I there are people, a lot of women, it happens to women a lot, where they'll post a selfie, and I have a friend that was posting selfies, and there'll always be some guys who are just like, oh, you're so into yourself, or oh, you're so, and just be nasty. And I'm like, I don't get it. And I shared something that said, I'll always like somebody's selfie, not because necessarily I think it's a great picture, but because in that moment they felt good about themselves, and that should be celebrated.
Oh, I like that. I never thought of it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the thing, because I know, and from all the years that I've done the body image stuff, most people have insecurities about themselves. So, and there's so many, and I'll say women, men too, but for women, where there's so many moms who aren't in the pictures, they're the ones taking the pictures, and they don't like how they look, and so for me, if you're feeling good in that moment and you take a picture and you post it, that's amazing. Like, I'm so happy for that. Why would anybody? It doesn't hurt me that somebody feels good about themselves. Like, that's so weird. My God, I would love if everybody felt great about themselves, because they would be nicer to everybody else, and things would be easier, But yeah, it's like you said, it's a weird thing that when you're feeling lousy, unfortunately, sometimes that other people's happiness pisses you off. And so my thing is, if my joy makes you uncomfortable, because I'm somebody, I don't know if you saw my social media, I dance everywhere. Like, I'm the dancing woman.
You know what? I actually have that in my notes here about how you might have been like, the good stripper, and you talked about dancing and stuff like that, but you have incorporated dancing right up until now. Like, you dance on elevators, you dance on yeah.
I do. It's because, you know what? It was, it's when I was a little kid, there were two ways that I would get out of funk if somebody was bothering me. I'd either write about it, or I'd dance. I'd put on my Donna Summer and my like orange shag carpet in my living room, and I would dance. And it's always been my release, and it still is to this day. And it's part of that whole zero fucks left 50s, where I walk everywhere, and I have my music, and I will walk to my music, but I dance, and I will walk into a store. They're like, you dance by my house, but it makes people happy, honestly. And my thing is, it's not hurting anyone. So even if somebody drives by and is like, what is that woman's? Then it's a funny story to tell other people.
That's true. Yeah. So because if dancing is kind of like, because there's a couple of things I want to talk about listening at some of your podcast stuff, but if dancing was kind of your way of making you happy, do you feel that that's what maybe like been a factor as to why you went into like professional dancing kind of thing? Like, you're
talking, when you say professional dancing, you mean the stripping?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, nice way to put it. I think.
Well, it's a profession, so I mean,
I think that, it's funny because it's not something I would have done had my life been different at that time. However, it's not like I was this shy, into books and science, and all of a sudden I went to that. That would have been really kind of strange. That would have been a real, what the hell happened there? So it wasn't like it was this huge leap, but it was like that. There's a big difference between dancing in your living room or dancing, on a dance floor, and leaving your kids after you tuck them in and going to a club and stripping naked for people. There's a difference there. But But I do think that I say all the time, I remember once being in the club and this girl came over to me and who worked there, and she said, like, how long did it take you, like, working here before you went on stage? And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, like, I've been here a while and I'm like nervous to get on stage. How long? And I'm like, oh my God, like that was first day, I didn't even know that was a thing. That was my favorite part. I didn't like approaching people to be like, hey, buy me. I didn't like that. The lap dancing was fine. But on stage, yeah, there was something in there that was mine, and it's unfortunate that was where I was getting kind of my self-worth. And being a mom, because it was so important to me to be the best mom ever. But then for me, for my self-worth, there was something about, because I was, like I said at the beginning, when I was a little girl, I was like dancing and singing and on stage and all that. So that was in me. So that I was getting something from that, for sure.
And so just so anyone who's kind of listening kind of understands everything too, is like, you had kids, you were married, and then you decided to do this. Now, is this something that you were hiding from people? Like, and what I mean by people, I mean like your house, or like, and sneaking off in the night and making up excuses, or did like your husband know?
This episode is brought to you by Strategy Up. Strategy Up is a business consulting firm led by Mark Zerka, who has over 20 years' experience in building commercial strategies that will up your game, organize your teams, increase your productivity, and grow your business.
Whether you're a construction company looking to grow your revenue or a busy restaurant owner just trying to keep the doors open, Strategy Up can help. Strategy Up's boutique-style consultations will help you improve business process across nearly any industry.
Being a successful entrepreneur does not mean you have to be an expert in everything. Strategy Up specializes in building a relationship with you. Once pain points in the business are realized, Strategy Up will introduce process and technology that will power up your game to the next level.
A successful business requires investment. Your next step towards growth starts now. Email info@mystrategyup.com for a free business discovery call. Up your game with Strategy Up.
He knew. I will tell you that, and it's so silly. Yeah. So like I said, our marriage was pretty normal. And then I had gotten really sick and I almost died, and was recovering. And he kind of, I talk about it more openly in the book. But there was a turn there where was asking me to do things and kind of open up things a little bit. And I was still dealing with my eating disorder and had lost my mother and I lost some babies. I had gone through a lot, and I had that traumatic overload thing where I sort of felt like, okay, so I'm not lovable because everyone in my life that loved me had died. And I didn't feel like my husband loved me, but people seemed to want to be with me. And so that's, again, where I thought, okay, so if I'm not lovable, how will I earn my space here? And we had gone to strip clubs together. And they would like pull women up on stage. And I was like, okay, I was getting some attention. And then the funny thing, so with what happened with the stripping, what happened, and it's so ridiculous, especially when people say, oh, you were doing to help your, no. So what happened was I was dealing with my eating disorder. I was in great shape though, but I had joined a new 24-hour gym because I would never leave my kids. So I would go when the kids were asleep. Right. I would go at 11, 12, 1, 2 in the morning. And I met a trainer there who was like, oh, I could get you to look like a fitness model in like a few weeks. And I was like, okay, looking at all those magazines, but I had to pay extra, right? Now I was a stay-at-home mom with 2 toddlers. I couldn't work. And I always felt that if I wasn't contributing financially, I shouldn't take anything. So I never did anything for myself. Didn't go, hairdresser, nail. I never didn't buy myself anything. Didn't do that. So I thought, okay, I want to do the personal training. I need money. I don't want to take money from the household. What can I do? I need a job that won't interfere with the family. And so I thought, because wouldn't every mother think, oh, stripping? So he actually took me to my audition, So what I would do is, and I talk about this, is what I would do is, so he knew, but no one else knew. And I would be home with my kids. It was very important to me that I would read to them before bed. Like I was there to tuck them in. They never knew I wasn't there. So I tucked them in. I would drive to the club. I would dance. So at this time, not a sip of alcohol, not a drug, nothing. I was the only dancer who had a protein shake in my locker. Okay. Cause I was bodybuilding. So I would dance, have my shake, and then I would leave. I would go home, change, go to the gym, and I would work out. And that was 4:00 in the morning. And then I would come home or go to the 24-hour grocery store if I needed something, come back, take a shower, not sleep, and be there when my kids woke up. And I would go 2-3 days without sleeping.
Well, that's what I was just, yeah, like that really breaks you down though. You can honestly not be present for them in different ways because of that, right?
But it was such a weird thing because I must have seemed like I was on something because I had all this energy, and I don't honestly, I always say it's trauma, and so he didn't, my ex-husband didn't love that I did it at first. And then when I was helping with grocery money and I was able to contribute, then was perfectly fine with it. But it was, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I know, like, I was gonna ask about like how he felt kind of about that, because I mean, I think about it like, for me, no judgment. I'm someone who would like, that's, like I said, it's a profession. You're providing a service, is what it is. So no judgment from there. That being said, having my wife do it is a totally different thing.
Well, again, at this point, our marriage was different, and he was fine with a lot of things. But I'll tell you this, just to jump ahead for 1 second. So my kids didn't know any of this, right? And then when my book was coming out, they knew I was writing a book, but they figured it was more like body image stuff or women empowerment thing. They had no interest. And then I got the book deal at the beginning of COVID. So then I was like, we don't even know if it's going to come out. We don't know what's going to be. So I didn't want to tell them because I'm like, well, I don't want to tell them everything and then it doesn't come out. And I've told them everything for nothing. So I waited till the last minute. It was coming out like in a week. And I met with them. And again, I think I'm trying to think. So this is like 2020. So maybe 20 and 17 at that time.
Yep.
And so I met with them and I said, okay, the book's coming out. And this is how I told them. I showed them the cover. And so I have it here. So I'll show you. So it's like, you've got like a baby carriage on a stage with a pole. And it says, look at stripper. So I just showed them the cover. And they knew nothing. And my older son just went, okay, do you want my opinion as your son or as a consumer? And I'm like, really? Like, he's like, it's a great cover. And I'm like, are you great? What? And my younger son was like, when did it, like, they were so unfazed because I was always there. It wasn't like they were going, oh, that's why you weren't home for 3 days. Like, they were like, when were you not? And I remember I kept saying, and they won't read it because it's kind of graphic.
I was gonna ask you that. Like, are they avoiding it or did they?
No, they just. My older son wanted to know because there were some people who weren't thrilled that I wrote it and were going to him kind of angry. And he's like, "Okay, tell me what's in it." And I told him, and he was like, he's very kind of intellectual like that. And he said, "It's very interesting to hear about your parents as people, not just as parents." And he said, and he's close with his dad too. And he just said, I have your back. And both my kids were like, we're in your corner. You do you. I used to call them every time I was doing an interview. I'm going to talk about this. They're like, don't call us anymore. We'll let you know if there's any problem, But I kept saying, I did things, but I always wanted you to have a good life. I always wanted you to feel loved. And my son stopped me and he said, you keep saying you made mistakes, but you also keep saying that you wanted us to be happy. We're happy. So maybe they weren't such big mistakes, Yep. So that was what was so important. So again, that's something that in my head, I thought, what if they hate me? What if they hate me because I did it? What if they hate me because I'm talking about it? They didn't, So we do that to ourselves, It's like we're afraid the whole world's going to collapse, and it doesn't. It doesn't.
Yeah. Well, I think people do hold shame over other people's heads quite often in this world, unfortunately, and that's something people probably fear, right? So
but why though? But
if you believe in what
that's
you're doing, you got to look around that.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I don't know what it is, but I finally got to a point. Yeah. I mean, it took half a century, but where your words, your judgment don't hurt me. I've been through the tough stuff. So again, to judge me for it, that's on you.
Love it.
The other thing is like I was listening to a couple of clips, and one clip that you have on is, and you're talking about unhealthy coping mechanisms versus healthy coping mechanisms with trauma and things like that. And that's kind of what I was thinking. Why I was kind of putting together like the dancing, because it sounds to me like dancing was a coping mechanism for you, which, and that can be viewed either way. You can think of just dancing, like general just in dancing, obviously very, very healthy coping mechanism or very healthy way of release. Versus, and then, you know, you're the only one who can decide whether the other dancing was a healthy one or not. It's kind of, but yeah, I elaborate a little bit more on like in terms of your, you know, what you found to be your now healthy coping mechanisms versus the unhealthy ones.
Well, that's the thing. It's like now anyone knows me again, the dancing. It's funny because when I first kind of put out there, when I hit like the post, you know, on Facebook when it was coming out, the book, and nobody knew, and I had the cover, I thought, can I not dance on the street anymore? And I don't like go dancing like a crazy person, but I'm dancing enough. I thought, can I not do that anymore? Because are people going to go, oh, and put the like connect? And then I'm like, well, no, that's ridiculous. I was dancing before I was dancing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's not gonna stop. But it's like, it's funny because you're saying, was that kind of a coping mechanism? No, going to a dance class would have been a good coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Getting naked on stage, not so much. Without sleep. But now, so the dancing, I mean, I can be starting to walk, let's say, down the street, and I don't have my music on yet. And I'm like, I think to myself, how do I do that? That's so embarrassing. And then my music starts, and I'm like, right, here we go, you know, lights, camera. So it just changes something in me. And so I know that brings me joy. The world is on fire. The world is not a great place. And for me, there's so many times where someone will see me and they'll say, you are like the happiest person ever. And I'm always like, no, I'm not. The world is a mess. But I know that in order to not, you know, end up on the other side of the ledge, I have to find the things that make me happy. And that makes me happy. So, you know, exercising, being active. I always say I go to the gym, I work out hard, you know, for me, but also for you, because I'm a much nicer person when I do that. But what I said, I know in that interview you're talking about is that there's so many things. So I had my trauma, right? But then I had what I did to get through my trauma, whether it was my eating disorder or being promiscuous or the other things that I did. For some people, it's drugs. For some people, it's alcohol. For some people, it's gambling. I mean, it could be so many different things. And yeah, it would be fantastic if our brains just went to, I'm having a hard time with this. This is breaking me down. Okay, I'm going to start meditating, or I'm going to take yoga, or I'm going to whatever. Like that would be great. But a lot of those things, the reason why they are helpful is because they bring us into ourselves, right? You become one with yourself. You understand. Yeah. But when you're going through a hard time, you don't want that. That's the last. I was not trying to get closer to me. I was trying to get further from me, which is what drugs do, and alcohol, you know, all that stuff. It takes us away from ourselves. And so that's why I think we turn to the unhealthy mechanism. We're not consciously. I'm not like, how I feel bad. How can I hurt myself more? Well, I did actually do that. At some point, I did feel like I'm a bad person. How can I prove that I'm a bad person? I'll keep doing the things that make me a bad person. Because you're not, you know, you're being guided by this yourself, which is not, that's not great, you know?
It's also
when you're not in a healthy place.
Yeah, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Right. And that's the thing, you got to get out of your head. So so then for me, it was, okay, so I had my trauma. Then I had to process the trauma. So once, and I still haven't, look, my traumas are losing my mother, losing my brother, you know, certain things, and I'm still gutted from it. Like I won't, however, I've learned how to sort of process. But there's the trauma. But then it's like, oh God, now I have to deal with the things that I did while I was trying to cope. So it's almost like, another analogy won't be great, but it's like if you're drunk and you cross through someone's living room, right? You feel bad, but then you get sober and you're like, oh my God, like okay, wow. And you got to see all the damage that you did. So I had to look at all the damage that I did. And now I'm like, and the problem is, in the past, when you had to do the hard stuff, you would go to whatever your coping mechanism was. Well, now you can't. So now you got to just feel it. I can't starve myself, or I can't binge, or I can't whatever. Oh my God, I got to deal with this. That's what's so hard. And I think that's what people avoid, because that's harder than sometimes, the trauma. They say, like with addiction and stuff, that for a lot of people, rock bottom is when the things that you're doing to get through the trauma are more painful than the actual trauma. So what I was doing to myself was causing me more damage than sort of what life had done. So that's the point of it. It's being willing to get through the trauma, but then deal with doing it without the coping mechanisms. It's tough. I had more. It was harder for me to get through that shame of what I did, but I've learned to forgive myself. Now, there's some things I did that I'm never going to feel great about. If it was like, there are a couple of things I did that inadvertently hurt somebody else, I'll never feel good about that, but that's okay. I do forgive myself in the sense that I know I didn't want to hurt anyone. And one thing I explain to people who are dealing with shame is that what we're doing sometimes is we judge ourselves then for who we are now. Like, I'm going to judge myself back then with who I am now. That's not fair, because back then I didn't have support. Back then I didn't have experience. Back then there's so many things I didn't have. It's not fair for me to judge that version of me with this version, right? I have to be kind to that version. And I think a big part of it is to say, okay, you're feeling shame about something you did. Would you do it again? No. Well, then let it go. You've learned. And that's the thing. You wouldn't do it again. And that's the big, because now you have resources I didn't have. I know so many times I messed up. I did not know what else to do. Now I do, and I'll do things differently. But it's a tough thing. We are so much harder on ourselves than other people, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fairly I think that's fairly accurate. I mean, I know in my place of work, I if I screwed something up, my boss doesn't need to tell me. Right?
Yeah.
I'll be the one that'll be like, yep. And so I totally get it. So yeah, we can definitely beat up on ourselves harder than, I mean, sometimes some people don't care. Some people definitely there are definitely some people out there that just,
That's true. There's always going to be. But the one thing I just want to say quickly is, I think one thing that we miss out on with a lot of the sort of the positivity things that we see on social media too, is that I find I don't connect. Like, I'm never going to be somebody who posts like, I woke up today and it's a great day and I'm grateful. And I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that stuff, but like, I'm not going to pretend that everything's great all the time. I'm not. Yeah. And I don't relate to that because it's just not the way it is. So I think people are afraid of showing their scars. They're afraid of showing their flaws, not realizing that that's actually the stuff that people relate to. I mean, the people aren't calling me and messaging me and coming over to me and saying, oh, I related to that really great thing that happened. They're relating to the tough stuff. And even the mistakes. That's what connects us as people. Not when things are fantastic all the time. Fine. But it's that. And so we're missing out on amazing connections with people that we may think we have nothing in common with, when we're hiding the stuff that just makes us human. And I think that's what's so crucial. It's like, we have to show that it's okay to be human, and being human is being imperfect, and it is fucking up sometimes, and that's okay.
Yeah. So switching a little bit to you being like so open and putting your life out there and talking about all the things that you felt that you've done wrong or whatever, looking back, and shame, embarrassment, whatever. It can be as much as I said, it could be liberating to let it all go. Online can be a cruel beast. Like, you must have to deal with some real idiots online that come there just to troll. And how does that, like, someone who's had trauma and are hard on themselves, how do you deal with that?
Well, luckily, again, I didn't put the book out until I was ready to deal with that. I was ready, as much as you can be ready, kind of thing. I think what's interesting though is when I'll get negative comments, it won't start with that. Nobody's really going to come at me because they see my book title or anything like that. It's if they didn't like something else I said about another issue. Then I'm waiting. Okay, then they're going to go And they're going to say, and then like, well, you're just a whatever. Oh, of course, that's what you think. Cause and I'm like, okay, that was so, and as if the funny thing too is because I put it out there, I'm like, oh, great detective work that you found out. Like I wrote the book. It's on the title. It's on my cover. But like, you're telling me something, you're trying to shame me with something I put out there. Like, try something else. It doesn't work. And it's so weak. What I have found, however, is being a single woman, trying to meet new people. When you have a book out that's called The Good Stripper, that is an interesting.
That's a nice breaker.
It's tough because at first I would try to like not put it out there, and then social media, and I met somebody once, and it was like all they had was my name and my picture, and they just Google imaged me, and then it was like, there you go. So I've met people for the first time, and they've been like, I read your book, and I'm like, wow, Jesus. Okay, well, I know nothing about you.
Today, though, like you got a lot of people using OnlyFans enough now to kind of make a little extra money. Like there's a lot of people doing it.
But here's the thing, though. It's like if you're just going off the title, you're gonna like. I'll get people who think negatively about me, or they're like, oh, they think they're getting something like, or they'll pick parts of the book that work to their narrative kind of. So it's an interesting kind of. I'm always like, okay, well, it's like, and then I just kind of let it go.
When you put yourself out there like that, you're gonna.
Yeah. But the thing also is, the book ends when I left my marriage. That's 2016. So it's 2025 now. I've changed in the last 9 years. You know what I mean? So if you think that, I've changed in the last 3 months. So if you think there's parts of me for sure, but if you think you're getting that person, surprise.
So are you working on a second book now to
I could. But no, there's some things that might be happening with the book, and we'll see. But cool. I don't think I would write another one. I think I'll do something though creative with it.
It definitely has movie potential. I'm sure that's probably where this is going. So let's just
could be
there. Yeah. So let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens.
And then you did the podcast, like How to Ruin Your Reputation.
Yeah, that was a blast. That came from. I'd still do it, but I had issues with my producer. But that was because I took that risk of, if I was going to release this, I had to like run the risk of ruining my reputation. And so that came from anybody who had a story, and I was really picky with who I had on, who lived a life that was judged and stigmatized, and it would give them the platform to share their story. And so many times I would put out a topic, and friends of mine would say, I was so ready to like not like this person, but they said some things that I related to, and I'm like, that's the point. And I met so many really interesting people through that.
That's cool. I like that. I like the title.
Yeah. How to ruin your own reputation.
Yeah. I'm good at that.
And I'd like another thing. It's going back to like how other people kind of dig into you there too, because I noticed that you had a post up there at one point late last year where someone decided to take shots at you because of being Jewish.
Oh, someone! I get that daily.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh.
Well, like what's like, especially more recently, because there's a lot going on.
Given
the
current climate, obviously.
Yeah.
So did you which post? Because I usually try to clap back. Like I don't. Because I always said I was somebody who wasn't observant. I didn't grow up observant. I didn't go to synagogue. I considered myself Jewish. I don't do anything. Like I just wasn't really part of anything. And
I had a friend who used to say that. He's like, I'm not really Jewish. I'm like Jewish.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't I was just. And then when everything happened on October 7th of 2023, it changed me. And when I saw how the world was flipped upside down, I was like, this isn't okay. And I really felt I've always been somebody who stood up. And I've always been somebody who stood up for other people. And then when I found that nobody was standing up for us, it affected me. So I don't overly post, but I will post. I put up the other day. I did a little dance video where I'm dancing to Hit Me With Your Best Shot. And I'm putting up all the different comments from people calling me a Nazi to telling me, get ready for the ovens, to, horrible stuff. And and they come after you, and but and it's upsetting, but at the same time, again, like I said, oftentimes I'll just kind of clap back. I mean, you're not going to change somebody. They just want to hate on you.
Yeah.
But that's when you have to, again, like with social media, you have to take it for what it is, and I realize there are people who say to me, oh yeah, this is what you think. Well, why don't you show me where it says? And I'm like, I'm not doing your homework. Like what I said, I've been talking to you for 6 seconds and I've enjoyed none of them. Like, I'm going to now do homework for you. Like, who are you?
Yeah.
That's the thing with social media. It kills me. It's like, I'm sure there were terrible people in the world before, but we didn't know that some woman in Texas was like awful. Now we know because she's posting like I don't need to know all this information. And we have this, things could be so great. We could be learning from each other and having these amazing conversations. And instead it's just like, yelling. And it's such a waste, but you have to have a thick skin in this crazy world,
God. But you also can't not be afraid to speak your opinions, put your mind out there and how you're feeling out there. Like,
people do. And even with this, I had people saying, thank you for speaking out. And I'm like, me? Like, I was never, but I was raised to stand up for myself. One thing I say in the book early on is the first time that happened was like in grade 3, and I had a teacher that was bullying the kids.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it. And I wrote a petition about him and got everyone to sign it. And he changed. And it was like, So it matters. Your voice matters. And I won't shut up. I'm sure there's lots of people who are like, God, I wish you would, but I'm not gonna.
My pessimism towards social media now is it does seem to be a place where there's a lot of angry people and a lot of silent people. And it's just like, you really need to like kind of bring up the neutral, not not always the quotes but like the deeper context and the deeper meaning and showing the really what's up.
I think so. Yeah. And I try to balance. I won't always
help people see the story, right? And maybe,
you try, you do your best. You can't like yourself drown in it. You're it's not, there was another quote, I don't remember, but it's sort of like, you do your part, but don't think you have to save everything because you just can't, and you have to keep your sanity. So that's why I'll post stuff that's important, but then I also put my silly stuff because I think it's, and I also don't want my page to be something where it's always here. I want people to go to it and be like, oh, like today I got something. Oh, this, I thought of you, and it's a dancing thing. Like I want that. You want to be a distraction and bring some light during this crazy time too.
So you just said the word silly stuff. Can we go to some fun done questions now?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, I'm so afraid of these questions, but go ahead.
My favorite part. Don't be afraid. These are fun. If you don't want to answer them, have a sip of your vodka or water or whatever you got going on over there.
Okay.
All right, Mike, you going first?
I'm going to water.
Am I going first or are you going first?
I'll read the first one here. It's right in front of me. So, they start off fun. Which is a person that's been a positive influence in your life? Just any person you could think of, top of your head today.
Right. But it's so cliche, but I have to go with my mom. I lost her when I was 28, so I haven't had her for a really long time.
Yeah.
But she had a really hard life, and she was, with every reason to be bitter, she was still love personified. And she used to say that nobody that you meet is inferior nor superior to you, regardless of anything. It's just strength of character that makes a difference.
Awesome. Yeah. Question number 2. This one's a little bit funnier. So we know that there is an abundance of songs where people take their clothes off to.
Okay.
But give us a song that would be good to put your clothes back onto.
What? In what context now?
I don't know. Like the stripping's over. You got to get your clothes back on. What's a good song to get your clothes back onto?
Oh, Lord. Oh, my God. What's a good song to put your clothes?
Just a song that generally has no like unattractive or unfun or unpleasant. So I don't know.
I'm gonna go with
Johnny Cash. "Hurt" be a good one, right? You don't want to script it out.
Hold on. No, I'm gonna something like I'm gonna go to like one of my guilty pleasure songs, which is like Mbop. I can't imagine. I can't imagine. So that seems like
nobody wants to strip.
Nobody's taking their clothes off to those three prepubescent boys singing Mbop.
You know, we used to think You know, we for
Tobin's
real used to think
Tobin's gonna get dressed tomorrow morning to Umbop for sure.
It's a great, honestly, it's a fun song.
We for real used to think they were girls, me and my little brother, right?
They're cute now. They're all like,
brother,
they got like 17
when they're
kids.
like little, because we were small, and like my little brother was like, he's like, I think the drummer's cute. And then like when we realized it was a boy, I was like, oh dude, we thought it was the best.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, we had no idea. All right.
Question number 3.
Okay. Pick a genre of music that should be suitable for each beer type. Okay. So we got 3 beer
I don't know
types.
anything about beer. Oh boy.
Okay, so an IPA is kind of a hoppy, flavorful beer.
Okay.
And then you have your lager, which could also be, Matt, you'll correct me, but maybe kind of a lightish style beer.
Light, crisp. Yeah.
And then your stout is like your Guinness beer, that heavy beer.
Okay, so we'll go.
Those, put a style to a beer type.
Oh, Lord. Okay, so we'll go. I'm going to go. Let's start with the stout. The heavier stuff is either, I'm going to go like the 90s alternative stuff, like a 3 Days Grace, maybe some Creed, maybe some Godsmack, that kind of thing.
All right. Yeah.
Okay. And then give me the other ones. There was the one that's
like
the lager,
which is like the lightest, like the
lager.
Okay, so let's go for some 80s disco or 70s and 80s disco for that one.
Okay. And the IPA.
Okay. Let's go with, we're going to go with the country pop. So not country, pop. But not pop. You know what I mean? So it's kind of.
Okay.
All right.
I can feel it.
That's not bad. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
I like it. All right. Question number 4. So what's a common mistake people make when starting their healthy fitness journey?
Oh, too strict. I'm going to cut out sugar and I'm going to cut out anything bad and I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week. And then they don't do it and then they feel like failures and they go, screw it, I'm not going to do it. Make it realistic. Little changes. And that will get you there rather than throwing too much too soon.
Cool.
Yep, I like that.
Okay. Which one of the afternoon pint hosts would most likely take their clothes off if they had too much to drink? You just have to go by feeling here, Matt or Mike.
I'm actually going to go with Mike.
Oh, I was going to go with Matt. Okay,
I know. My first thought was Matt.
Yeah.
But then I think we get you drunk. I think Matt would be there with the camera to get it recorded.
It's 100% Mike. He's the one. First of all, he gets drunk way easier than I do. Also, he's the one who, out of the two of us, we have a guys group chat. He's the one who sent the naked pics to the guys group chat.
I did?
Yeah.
You were drunk. You don't remember.
And then you quickly deleted it.
No way. I did that?
Yeah, you did.
Oh my God.
Where? What did you see?
Too much.
For real?
It's hilarious that you don't remember.
No,
you deleted it, and everyone was like, "Hey, tell them what you unsend." And I was like, "Don't worry, guys, I saw it, and you didn't need to."
Oh, Jesus Christ! Are you sure?
So I was right.
I don't know.
Was right.
Well, it's probably true. Okay, going on to the next question. There you go. No shame, right? There we go. Keep moving on.
Yeah.
What the frig? I lost my spot though.
That's all right. So we are in question 6. It's my question, I believe, isn't it?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Imagine you were a butterfly and you could travel for miles to any place on the planet and just chill and observe humans. Where would you go and why?
Where would it go? You know what? It's so funny. No place feels safe right now. Being a Jewish person, I swear, places I'm like, can't go there.
True. But you're a butterfly.
I know, but
butterfly.
That's it. You know what? That's a tough one for me because I haven't been to a lot of places. So I'm going to see, nobody's going to be surprised by this. My kids always say that my happy place is Vancouver. I know it's not exotic, but I spent 5 years there. And there's something that is, even though a lot of bad stuff happened when I was living there, there's something that is always just, it's a happy thing for me.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna choose Vancouver on the water and the mountains.
Cool. Next question is
number 7.
What is the best thing and the worst thing that happened so far in 2025?
It's only early.
God. Oh my God, Jesus.
Inauguration.
Oh, well, yeah, but anyway. I'm gonna oh God. Well, the best thing in 2021. Well, I started, so like I said, I did it for years, and now I got back into fitness. So I teach fitness classes. I teach circuit and kickboxing and things like that. But I just started personal training yesterday. So that's a good one to bring in. So that's perfect.
Cool.
The worst thing, again, you're talking about well, you know what? I'm also going to say, because we brought up, I'm going to say that the beginning, the first 3 hostages coming home. That's also a huge thing. And the worst thing is the worst thing is still got to be related to that. So it's the fact that the rest are still there. So I'm going to go with that. It's hard for me to think of anything worse than that right now.
Good answer.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Question number 8. What's one resolution you make to yourself that you have a hard time committing to?
Okay, I'll give you 2 things. Like one is kind of more, and it is that I tend to still be hard on myself, and I try not to be. That's one. But sleep. I promise myself all the time I'm going to get up. That's the thing. I don't drink enough water. I don't get enough sleep. So, I'll go to bed at 2 and I'll wake up at 5:30 or 6, and that's not okay. So every time I'm like, I'm going to be in bed before midnight, and it doesn't happen. So that's 100%. That's it. I don't get enough sleep. I'm about 27 years sleep deprived. So I've been trying to do this for a really long time.
You have a lot of energy for someone who's sleep deprived.
Can you imagine? Yeah. I know it's.
I had a ton of sleep last night. This is me.
Seriously, yeah. Like
I don't know.
If you slept more, you might be like the Tasmanian devil.
I don't even know. I know, and I did my workout, and I don't know. It's frightening. But then when I stop. Okay.
Here's a deep thinking question, or not so deep thinking question. We're almost done here. If the Earth was flat, what do you think would happen if you reached the edge and kept going? If the Earth was flat. Shout out to the flat earthers.
What would be on the other side?
Yeah, what would be? You got the edge of the Earth and you kept going in your little boat. What do you think would happen if the Earth was flat?
Okay, the Earth was flat, and we got to the end, and I flipped over. I am picturing. Oh my God, I don't know why. Oh God, okay. This is the sleep deprivation coming in. You're not going to know this because you guys were young. There used to be a show when I was in the 70s called Land of the Lost. And it was with a sleep stack. If you watch it, if you're seeing clips of it now, it's ridiculous. But it was cool. I know. And they're in like a boat, and then they get into this thing, and it just spins, and they go. That's what I'm envisioning. It kind of goes over, but so I picture you go under. But my thing, and I'm going to bring it up, is that you end up in this kind of Candyland kind of place. So we get to the end, and then it's all like candies. That's what I'm picturing in my head.
Wonka's factory.
Wonka, that kind of thing. Like a Wonka thing. Yeah. Maybe I'm hungry. Maybe that's it.
All right. So question number 10 is the last question, and it's a theme that we've had for 2025.
Okay.
So what is one piece of advice that you were given that you can share with us and our listeners?
If you let them feed you, you let them starve you.
Oh, explain that.
Yeah.
Let them feed you.
Meaning, you have to be very careful that you've got to make sure that you've got you, because there are people who will tell you, I got it. Don't worry, I got it. And you depend on them for everything. And then because they give you, they can take it away. So be very careful. If you let people feed you, then you're also giving them if you give people the power to feed you, you're giving them the power to starve you. I mean, it sounds kind of, but all it's saying is hold on to some of your power. Don't, like, I tend to take it. I have friends will say I've taken it too hard, like where I'm like, I don't like when people do anything for me, because I'm always
take you for dinner. Fuck you.
I'm really tough like that. I'm very tough with having people, because I do feel there's been times where people are like, don't worry, I got it. And they didn't have it.
Yeah.
They don't. So it's just, if you give people the power to feed you, then you give them the power to starve you. So it's just make sure you got you.
That's good. Cool. I like that. Never heard it before. Honest God.
Yeah. I never heard it before either. So it's good.
That's good.
You got that. You got your vibe attracts your tribe. Look at that.
Yeah,
man, we're getting some good quotables.
We get some sound bites.
I'm telling you.
Yeah. So that wraps things up. I think
That wraps things up.
Anything you want to announce or share that you want people to know or do? You want to follow you on Instagram or anything like that?
You can follow me, Marcy Warhaft. You can put that up. But also for my book, if you want to read it, it's it's The Good Stripper, a soccer mom's memoir of lies, loss, and lap dances. And you can get it on Amazon. It's probably the easiest. And if you do read it, then I would love for people to contact me and tell me what they think.
So pick up the book on Amazon or listen on Audible if you're lazy like me. And that's awesome. Thank you so much for your time. It was really awesome.
Thanks. That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Cheers. Oof.
Yep,
I'm out of beer. I'm drinking a big water bottle now, but there you go.
All right.
All right. Yeah. Have a great one. Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Afternoon Pint. We are an independent podcast and we need your support. Please take a moment to hit that like, follow, and share button. Email us if you have an idea or suggestion for the show. Please send your feedback. We'd love to hear from you.